Welcome to Shoppingtown Mall, dead in Syracuse and finally shuttered by Moonbeam. I had arrived in Syracuse upon nightfall in October 2019, and at the last minute, I decided to go to Shoppingtown at night. So brace yourselves, it's going to be dark. For best results, turn off the lights in your room and put on a pair of headphones if you really want to. A dead mall at night is always an experience, one that might not be for the faint of heart. Although some dead malls manage to instill a sense of melancholy at night, Shoppingtown instills something else entirely. A sense of dread, horror, a fear of what might be just around the corner. And nowhere was this stronger than Shoppingtown. You will see in this video that I had to tweak with the contrast and brightness just so you could see where we were going. And although the GoPro exaggerates things, I can assure you, it really was this dark. For a recap on the mall's history, Shoppingtown Mall's legacy began in the 1950s as a very early shopping center in Syracuse, and boasted early tenants like Addis and Days, Woolworth, W.T. Grant, and a small movie theater. Coming into the 60s, the shopping center would be bolstered by a television studio, which was WNYS-TV at the time. Despite catching fire in 1967, the studio continued on, becoming WIXT-TV in 1978, and then moving away to a new studio in 1985. Shoppingtown itself wouldn't become a proper enclosed mall until 1975, where it would gain JCPenney, Sears, and Chappell's over its life. There is a fair bit to keep up with, as more anchors came and went in and out of the picture, not all of which I was able to dig up, unfortunately. You can see this corridor, and I have a snaking suspicion that Moonbeam does not bother to turn on the lights inside this mall. The skylights and inlines often provide all the lighting you need, but what about after dark? Besides a few lights up in the ceiling, I don't see many on at all. The darkness turns an otherwise inviting mall into nightmare fuel. And it didn't help that someone was following me partway down this corridor. This place gives me vibes back at Richland Mall, inside their dank and dark food court. Very few lights are on, if any. No one is around, save for a vagrant in the shadows and mall security looking for a quiet spot to goof on their phone or stalk passerbys as a means of intimidation. With places like these, I often feel like I'm looking into an early scene of apocalyptic events. Only bare-bones lights are on, powered by battery backup most likely. Everything is still relatively clean, save for bits of dust here and there. And you don't know if those shapes moving about are survivors or monsters. Places like these really get the imagination running wild. In real life, things are a little more boring than that. And at the time, they were even a little optimistic. Despite losing all of its chains, Shoppingtown Mall still had a tenant base of small community businesses and recreational activities. From kickboxing classes to gyms, from an indoor skate park to even a fencing class. Hearing Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone blasting from one of the rooms did help to calm the nerves a little bit. By the 90s, Wilmorite owned the Shoppingtown Mall and carried out an extensive renovation to update the mall's image, and hosted a grand reopening event to celebrate. And by 1995, the mall's anchor lineup included JCPenney, Sears, Bon-Ton, and Kaufmann's. Later on in the picture, Shoppingtown would even come to enjoy the benefits of an Old Navy and a Dick's Sporting Goods, while a 10-screen Regal Cinemas would occupy the basement of the mall. In 2005 would see Macerich purchase the mall from Wilmorite, and this would ultimately spell the end of the golden age for Shoppingtown, and it would begin its downward spiral. The mall would be passed on a little further to Jones Lang LaSalle in 2011, management being handled by Macerich until 2012, and then finally, the death knell for a mall, Moonbeam Capital Investments, would purchase the mall in 2014 for $13.6 million. I don't need to go into detail about why Moonbeam is a horrific name in retail, do I? Regarding anchors and tenants, 2010 would be an attempt to bring in smaller, non-traditional tenants like CNY Gymnastics. With national tenants fleeing, the mall was forced to look into alternate tenants, typically community and service-based businesses like gyms, exercise classes, and even that skate park we mentioned earlier. This was probably one of the spookiest parts of the mall. These stairs go down into a sort of conversation pit area, and in one direction is a corridor that goes into parts unknown, and on the other side were sets of doors, all of which were closed. By this point, I was trying to find a bathroom, and eventually found one in an empty anchor tenant. The vibe I got was comparable to that of the back rooms. This end of the mall was one of the weirdest, as it had the largest number of tenants still operating, and in some parts, the lighting was bearable, but it would only dissipate as you went down the ramps towards Sears, and if you headed the other way towards Dick's, you would be shrouded in the dark yet again, and when the conditions are right, you would be able to hear a familiar electrical buzz in that end. Bon-Ton left early on in the mid-2000s along with Old Navy, though it wasn't until 2015 when the anchor situation would completely evaporate. Macy's and Dick's Sporting Goods both left in 2015, and JCPenney followed after in 2016. Around the same time, Moonbeam Capital Investments had, amazingly, proposed plans to chop off the mall and demolish all the way to Sears to make that part into a strip mall. However, after a tax dispute, these plans were ultimately shelved indefinitely. This directory has not been touched for quite some time. Sears held out for dear life all the way into September 2018 before finally closing, and by this time, the mall looked a lot like this. No more tenants in the food court, no more anchors. Even a Rite Aid that had been around since the beginning was finally over the mall and departed around the same time. And then, in 2019, Moonbeam began playing with Chapter 11 bankruptcy to prevent the county from seizing the mall. Like with Century 3, they just could not let go. For the next couple of minutes, I'm going to be quiet and let you, the viewer, take in the sights and sounds of this dark, spooky corridor. Let your imagination run like mine did. Back into the light at last. What did you hear coming down that corridor? Did you see anything in the shadows? You can never be too sure in a place as surreal as this. I ultimately feel I did good making the last-minute choice to go to this mall, rather than go straight to the hotel. It was just such a surreal experience, and it fit the vibe perfectly for Halloween. Moonbeam would have likely played this game all the way into 2021 or even 2022, as the mall still had a decent number of community businesses and the Regal cinemas. But what finally did the mall in was the IT, or the COOF, as some humorously call it. New York had some of the most draconian lockdowns in the nation, despite them not really working at all according to the numbers. Is my bias showing yet? Once everything was ordered closed in March, very little would reopen in New York until July. And regarding Shoppingtown Mall, it was unknown whether or not Shoppingtown even reopened. But regardless, in September 23rd, 2020, Moonbeam issued the 30-day eviction notice, and Regal Cinemas left early in October of that year. I'm sorry to say, guys, but the Shoppingtown Mall is no more. I would love to stay here at this mall. I would love to spend all night inside, break out a flashlight, and do impromptu ghost hunting even. But alas, we have to go soon. I want to thank you for going on this Spooktober mall walk with me, and I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to share your comments down below, and do share this video. I want people to see this place at this hour, and unless I can negotiate my way back in, I doubt we'll ever be able to see this place ever again. Thank you for having me, Syracuse. And until next time, this is Doomie Grunt wishing you and the Shoppingtown Mall farewell. to be straight up with you guys. I am on the top deck of the parking garage at Shoppingtown Mall, and I don't think this parking garage is structurally sound. It wobbles and shakes every time a car goes anywhere on it. And there are a ton of cars up there because the few businesses that are in this mall are doing very well for what they are. They're doing very well. So I don't know what Moonbeam is going to do or what the future owners might do, but I doubt this parking garage will be in use for very much longer.